a student has sent me an email asking about this question. The question says, consider a monopolist with a demand curve given by P equals 20 minus Q, where P is the market price and Q is the quantity sold. The monopolist's marginal costs are MC equals 2 per unit. There are no other costs. The monopolist's marginal revenue curve is, and what you have to do is find the equation for the marginal revenue curve. So we've got a demand curve, or an average revenue curve, which is expressed by the equation P equals 20 minus Q. And you're asked to find the marginal revenue. Now, it's got information about the marginal costs, but that's not really relevant to the question. We're only trying to find the marginal revenue. So that information about the costs has nothing to do with anything, so we don't need to worry about that. So let's draw up a graph first, and we'll put price and marginal revenue here. I'm going to represent marginal revenue with R prime. Alright, so if we wanted to draw in the this demand curve, we can first recognize that this is a linear equation. You remember a linear equation is y equals a minus, could be plus, minus bx. And this here is the vertical intercept. And this here, there's secretly a 1 there, is the slope. Okie doke, so the vertical intercept is 20. Let's put that in, 20. And the slope is 1, or so 1 over 1. Okay, so if we take the rise as 20, it's going to be 20 over something, which would make it 1 over 1, which is obviously 20. And there's our demand or average revenue curve. So far, so good, expressed by that equation. Now we want to put in the marginal revenue curve. Now, if we didn't know anything else, you at least know this, that the marginal revenue curve will have the same vertical intercept as the demand curve. So it's going to start at the same point, right? But it has double the slope in absolute terms. So double the slope would be, well, if we found a halfway point, that would give us double the slope, like that. And there's our marginal revenue. Now all we have to do is figure out, well, what would the equation for this marginal revenue line be? Well, that's pretty straightforward, because it's a straight line, it's a linear equation. So it's of the form this, negative because it's downward sloping. So y is the marginal revenue. I'm going to represent that by R prime, equals the vertical intercept, which is 20, minus, we've got a negative slope. What is the slope? It's double the slope of the average revenue curve. The average revenue curve slope was 1, so double 1 is 2. Done. That is the answer. Hooray. Now, if we wanted to do it just algebraically, without the aid of a graph, we can do it this way. We've got to remember that the marginal revenue is the differential of total revenue. So it's the change in total revenue due to a change in output. Okay, the extra increment of revenue. So what's total revenue? Total revenue is price times quantity. Okay? So all we need to do is, with this total revenue curve, we're going to substitute this into this. So let's rewrite that out. Total revenue equals 20 minus Q multiplied by Q. And let's expand that out. Revenue equals 20Q, right? Q times 20 minus Q times Q, Q squared. Okay, now we're going to use what's called the power rule. Okay, because we've got powers here, and we're going to differentiate this total revenue curve, or total revenue equation, and we're going to differentiate this total revenue equation to get the marginal revenue equation. All right, so here's how we do that if you're not familiar with it. R prime, this is our marginal revenue, is 20 times Q to the power of 1, and we take that power of 1, put it down here, 1 times 20Q, and we minus 1 from the power. And we've got minus Q squared. Take the power, put it down here, 2 times Q, and minus 1 from the power. And that should give us, fingers crossed, our marginal revenue equation. So 1 multiplied by 20 multiplied by Q, the power of 1 minus 1, so this is the power of 0. So this, when you've got anything to the power of 0, it becomes 1, or it is 1. So it's 1 times 20 times 1, which is just 20, minus 2 times Q to the power of 1. When we don't need to put into the power of 1 in that case. So 2Q. Well, look at that.